Well, it looks like we're finally going to be getting what we've all wanted since the beginning of this series. Meliodas' backstory. I just didn't think it would be delivered now of all times. I mean, especially after we just got settled with, Galther and Diane. I'm surprised we're already getting into Meliodas's now because of the recent events, but it seems like Nakaba-sensei is ready to let us know, and I'm pretty hyped up for that, but just the reveal on Elizabeth, that is something I should have expected. I knew there had to be some form of consequence to this curse instead of her just, coming back and then being reincarnated and Meliodas having to watch her die. There had to be something to it, and that's why Meliodas never went out of his way to say anything to the one he loved. There had to be a reason for it. Maybe he would die or something, but now looking at it like this, now it makes a little bit more sense. So Meliodas, he's been keeping a secret for a very long time, for over 3,000 years. That, oh my god, that has to suck. Like, the pain and the misery and the loneliness you must feel when you see someone you love die, when they start to remember you and when they just die because of it, that's kind of fucked up on so many levels. And so basically, here is Elizabeth's curse. Apparently, if she starts to remember things, like if she starts to gain back her memories and all that, in 3 days' time after that, she will die. So, she is cursed to die, regardless. So, if Meliodas was to walk up to her and say, like, hey, this is what happened and all that, I know you from all these years, and she starts remembering and all that, she is sentenced to death in 3 days. So, that's messed up. It explains why Elizabeth has had like over 40 to 50 reincarnations now over the past 3,000 years. It makes a lot more sense now. So I could see the first 5 or 10 or so tries that Meliodas had, like when she reincarnated, I could see that he probably tried to tell her something or, work a way around the curse, but it probably didn't happen at all. So I feel bad. I feel bad for this man. I really do. I really, really feel bad. And so it makes you really wonder exactly, like, what led to this? Like, why was she cursed? I mean, we kind of have a general understanding of what maybe led to that because of the flashback we got with her standing up for Meliodas and all that. That could be one of the reasons. But there had to be much, much more than that because of, if you look at the final panel of the chapter, it shows a bloody Meliodas and Elizabeth, so something else had to have happened for them to be cursed. I mean, Meliodas is also cursed by the Demon King, and now seeing what's going on with, Elizabeth, she was probably cursed by her side as well. So something has happened here, and we're finally going to be getting the details very soon. Now, one of the things I do want to point out, though, is Bon in this chapter. Bon, we knew he was going to be getting some development soon because of, Scylla still being alive and Elaine going for her own troubles right now, disappearing. Bon is one of those characters that's been needing a power-up for a while now, and also he needs to settle that plot point with his character when it comes to Elaine and Scylla. So, with that popping up, it's understandable that Bon would have a lot of, awful feelings inside of him. He'd feel horrible because he can't really save Elaine, and he knows that Scylla needs to be put down. And so he walks up to Meliodas like, hey, I need to kind of back out of this mission. Like, there's just no way I could go up and kill Scylla. I'd probably intervene and get in the way. So he's just being point blank to Meliodas saying, hey, man, like, you're gonna have to count me out on this one. I just can't help because I cannot be the one to kill the person I love or just watch it happen in the first place. Or, like, just to kill her and let her know that she's dead and I couldn't do anything about it. He's like, I don't want to see that. I just want to be there for her when she finally disappears. So, Bon wanting to sit out makes a lot of sense. But when he yells at Meliodas, like, he's like, she's about to die and all that. And then, Meliodas, he pops up and is like, hey, Bon, I know how you... And then, Bon pops up and says, like, you know how I feel? Like, you know how it feels to have the one you love die over and over again, to watch him die again? And you just see Meliodas get a very sad and calm face, and there's some depression behind that face. And at the end of the chapter with what's going on, Bond's probably thinking like, fuck, like, fuck. Like, that man is probably feeling like a piece of shit right now because, like, he saw Elaine die, which is very tragic, and he's seen her come back now. He's given that chance of hope, but then, she's gonna die again. So it's like he's losing his loved one once again, and it feels bad. It really feels bad. But then when he sees what's going on with Meliodas, he's probably thinking like, fuck. Like, this man has probably watched his girl die 40 to 50 times. That's pretty shitty. That's really shitty to have done to them. So it's like, Bond's probably feeling like a piece of shit for what he said to Meliodas. He's like, damn, I cannot believe I just said that. And he's like, I feel like, I'm all depressed. I can't imagine what this man's must have been carrying throughout his entire journey with me, even before that. So I do like how that was done, and I wonder how that's going to lead to Bond's interaction with Meliodas from now on, because if there's been one thing that these two characters have always had when it comes to similarities or their disputes, it's always been about the ones they love, or maybe Bond and Elaine connected with Meliodas, and now seeing how Meliodas has experienced something very similar to how Bond's experienced, losing Elaine, and now Bond is aware of this, I wonder how this is going to make the interactions between them, in the future chapters. So, anyways, getting off of that subject, though, let's talk about one quick thing before I get into some of the major details of this chapter. Let's talk about Mama Pig for a second. So Mama Pig, she straight up one-shot a Red Demon. Now, don't get me wrong, from what we have seen through recent chapters and arcs, we know that our characters are powered up quite a bit now, so Red Demon really isn't much in the grand scheme of things. However, still, if you go back to the first 100 chapters, the Red Demon was pretty ridiculous from what we saw from Bond's, backstory and all that. And just seeing how the Mama Pig just one-shot a Red Demon like it was nothing. I'm like, bro, this pig is so broken. Like, it was already previously established that this pig was pretty crazy. It's been hinted about for a long time, for many chapters, but then when you saw Derriere just, attack Mama Pig, and Mama Pig just tanks a full blast from one of the 10 Commandments and is fine, obviously the pig is not weak at all, or at the very least has a lot of durability, so it's not a stretch to see the pig just completely obliterate a Red Demon. It just like, damn, just the way the pig just snorted and the Red Demon was just gone, I'm like, oh my god, that pig is just freaking ridiculous in terms of power level. Might not be able to fight a 10 Commandment, but at the very least can tank a blast or two. That's just rather impressive. Just like, holy shit, Nakaba, the way you've built up this moving pig that has the boar's hat on top of it, just like, damn. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about one of the big things of this chapter, and that is Elizabeth breaking down and remembering everything. So with Elizabeth remembering everything and the curse upon it, all the characters to where Elizabeth will be dying in 3 days, Elizabeth is starting to remember things. And because of her remembering things, it's definitely going to make her very confused, in a state of confusion, because it's like you're right now, like you're yourself, and then all of a sudden you have memories from 3,000 years ago starting to pop up from all different parts of your previous lives. That's going to be very confusing, because you won't really ever know where you're at any given moment. For instance, like one moment you're 1,000 years back into the past, the next moment you're 100 years back in the past, next moment you're in present day, and then the next moment you're 3,000 years back in the past. That's what's going on with Elizabeth. She's just going in and out of different memories, and she doesn't really know where she's at any given moment. And when she's just sitting there yelling and screaming like, I need to get to Meliodas, I need to get to Meliodas to let, Meliodas know that, Barzad, he was bitten by a werewolf, he needs to be treated. Basically, when she's shifting back and forth, obviously there's going to be a lot of state of confusion going on, because these memories are flooding in, and she doesn't know what to think or how to feel. And throughout these different shifts with her remembering things, we can clearly get an estimate of where she was at each point with these memories when they were popping up. The first time when, Diane was holding Elizabeth back and all that, and then she's like, I need to go talk to Meliodas to tell him that, Barzad was bitten by a werewolf. If you remember, I actually had to look this up to get kind of a refresher of who Barzad was. I typed in just to see if that name was previously established or not, and it was. Actually, Barzad that was mentioned in this chapter, many might not recognize it, because I didn't recognize him by his, other name, Barzad. I recognized him by his first name, which is Kane. Now, you may not even know who that is still, but Kane is the old man that was in the tournament like 100 or so chapters ago. Like, the first 100 chapters when the tournament was going on and stuff and our characters were fighting, basically, I'm not talking about the one with Escanor, the previous one. Basically, Kane was there, and we knew he had a connection to Meliodas with Danafor and all of that. Well, when Elizabeth was mentioning this character, basically that implies that the Elizabeth we saw in that moment was Liz, the previous established, Elizabeth. For instance, the Liz that died in Danafor, and then Meliodas got really angry and all that. So, that's the Liz we had in that moment. But then, once she passed that scene and she started talking to Merlin's like, do you recognize me? And then, Elizabeth's like, holy crap, I didn't even recognize you. You look so much younger. That implies that Elizabeth in that given moment was around probably 3,000 years ago, or at the very least 2,500 plus. It was definitely around that time when, you know, that was that time zone where Elizabeth was, because we know with Merlin and, you know, Meliodas' connection, there definitely is a lot of history there, especially before the big war that happened 3,000 years ago. So, with Elizabeth going that far back and remembering, you know, Merlin, that means that Elizabeth definitely in that moment was probably the original. Now, let's talk about the information we gathered from that little segment. Number one, from what Elizabeth said, it's implied that Merlin was, at the very least, or is an old woman. It's just she's using magic to make herself look beautiful, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. I mean, this is a woman that has a broken magic ability, like a completely broken magic ability. So it would make sense that she's probably older than she appears. It's just she has magic to make her look young or whatever. So it's implied that she's a lot older than she looks, and she's probably like an old woman normally, but she looks young because she used magic. But also we get to hear a name drop. Belial or whatever. Now, I know the name Belial was mentioned a while back when we had the entire stuff with the Ten Commandments, and then Merlin introduced her ability. We found out how broken she was, and how, you know, she even scared some of the Ten Commandments because of her connection to Belial. So, this lets us know that, once again, this place that, you know, Elizabeth was talking about, obviously was a place before whatever happened to Merlin in the past and why the demons were freaking out. So, yeah, that was a very long time ago, probably, like I said, 3,000 plus years ago, and that is why probably Merlin was really shocked, like, holy shit and all that, like, she's remembering stuff like that, remembering the original me, remembering, you know, like, 3,000 plus years ago. In that moment, you could tell that Merlin's like, shit, it's over. Like, you could tell the way her face was of utter shock. She's like, fuck. So, with all of that, clearly, it's pretty much at the point of no return for, you know, Elizabeth now. But Merlin's face, though, besides just being shocked, most likely, of Elizabeth remembering, there probably is something else going on there. Because if there is one thing that's always been a mystery, besides just Meliodas' backstory, it's been Merlin's. Merlin's has a very interesting backstory. We know there's something there that's going to be fucking awesome, because Merlin has always been this character that's been tied to our sins for a long time. One of the oldest members of the Seven Deadly Sins, besides Meliodas. And so, because of this connection, we know there has to be a lot of history there, and Merlin has obviously had to see some crazy shit. So I am looking forward to Merlin's backstory, and maybe, you know, I guess Elizabeth remembering Merlin might be implying that we might get some more information on Merlin in the future chapters. So I'm looking forward to Elizabeth and all that, you know, finding out about all of her memories, even though she will die most likely, and also Meliodas, you know, telling more about his backstory as well. So yeah, oh yeah, one more thing I want to point out too, when basically Elizabeth is remembering things and Diana's acting all cheerful and stuff, and Merlin's like, chill out, like, calm the fuck down and all that, you know, it's like Merlin's trying to keep control of the situation because she realizes how bad it is. In that moment, you could see that Merlin was trying to lie. She was lying to everyone, saying, like, it must have been a curse from, you know, what Zeldris did to her. And so she was trying to play it on the down low to make it look like, you know, she didn't know at all. But in reality, she did know. It's just she was lying because she was keeping that secret for Meliodas. So, yeah, obviously Merlin has been very aware of this fact for a very long time, who Elizabeth is. It's just she's been keeping that closely guarded secret for Meliodas. Anyways, though, now let's talk about one big thing. So, Meliodas' backstory is coming, and we're probably going to see some dark shit, because we know something has had to have happened to this man to act like he does. I mean, there's definitely more of the curse than just probably Elizabeth dying. There has to be something else there. And I know there's probably something tied to Meliodas. I think, honestly, Meliodas wouldn't care much about himself if he could save Elizabeth, so there's definitely something else going on there, and maybe it is tied to whatever the Demon King is doing to Meliodas as well, stripping him of his emotions. Maybe there's something also tied to that curse when it comes to him, and maybe that is why, you know, he stays around, you know, Elizabeth, because if something is taken from him, maybe, you know, the curse will start with Elizabeth and she will die or something permanently. I mean, there could be more going on there than we even know, and I feel like that's what's going to be revealed. But here's the big question now, since we're getting this information: will Elizabeth die? That is the thing, because we do know, it's already been established, that Elizabeth, if she does die, she will be reincarnated. We know it's not GG necessarily for her completely, but this Elizabeth would die. And so the question is Nakaba-sensei going to kill her off, and then allow her to be reborn, or are they going to find a way to probably extend her life to where she does not die? One or the other is going to be a thing. And so after thinking about it a bit, and rereading this chapter quite a few times, it came to my mind like, wait a minute, what if Galther is the key here? I mean, there has to be a reason why Meliodas hasn't used Galther before, because he probably would have. I mean, I believe since Meliodas has had such a long-term connection with Galther since he was an original Ten Commandment, obviously he's probably aware of his abilities and stuff. However, for him not to use Galther, there's probably something else, or maybe risk or consequences or something. But, I mean, I feel like Galther is going to play a big role here. Galther, since he was recently redeemed, so to say, and he now remembers things, and now he's trying to be a good guy and all that. Basically, I could see Galther coming in and trying to either make Elizabeth forget certain things to where she doesn't remember it properly, or he's going to be able to kind of lift the curse, because we do know Galther is a pretty powerful individual. He has a powerful OP ability too, and we know his creator, his father, the original Galther, that man was broken. I mean, even the Demon King was scared of this man. So because of that, we know Galther has a lot of potential, probably to remove curses. So I could definitely see Galther playing a role here and probably helping out Elizabeth. And if for some reason, if there is some reason that Meliodas is unaware of Galther's abilities or the extent of Galther's abilities, which I doubt, but if somehow he is, because I mean, maybe Galther tampered with Meliodas' memories, even if Meliodas doesn't, Diane does. Think about it. Diane went in the flashback arc, she saw what the original Galther and all that was capable of, so maybe she will bring up the subject that, hey, why don't you use Galther to make her forget things where she doesn't have to die? Something like that. So I could definitely see Diane at the very least bringing this up, and maybe Meliodas shutting it down or being unaware of it, so that could be the key to extending Elizabeth's life if she does not die. So yeah, that is a possibility with the future events of this, series. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.